You drop your car at the mechanic in the morning. There's a list of things to check. They'll call when it's ready. 2 or 3 hours, they say. You head home and wait. 2 hours pass. Nothing. You check your phone. No missed calls, no messages. Did the work take longer than expected? Is something wrong? Or is the car sitting in the lot, keys at the front desk, ready to go, and the call never came through? At 3 hours, you pick up the phone and call them. The mechanic answers immediately. "Oh, it's been ready for about an hour. We called, but I think it went to voicemail. Didn't hear back, so we assumed you'd come by." The car was ready. The signal was sent. The signal didn't arrive. And in the silence after a missed signal, both sides were waiting for the other, neither knowing the other was still waiting. That gap is the structure of a TCP stall. When a receiver's buffer fills completely, the last available byte consumed, it does what it has always done. It sends an acknowledgement back to the sender. The window value in that ACK is 0. The sender receives that 0, and it stops. Not because the connection has failed, not because the network is down, because the rule it follows says, do not send more data than the receiver's window permits. The window is 0, nothing is permitted, so the sender sends nothing. Both sides are now in a holding state. The sender has data queued and is waiting for permission to transmit. The receiver has a full buffer and is waiting for the application above it to drain some space. Neither side has done anything wrong. The connection is open. The handshake is intact. No error has been raised. This is the stall. Not a crash, not a timeout, not a failure. A correctly functioning connection that has reached its buffer limit and stopped moving until space opens up. Here is what makes the stall precarious, before the detail. When the receiver's application eventually drains some buffer space, the receiver will send a window update, an ACK carrying a non-zero window value, telling the sender it can resume. But a window update is a packet, and packets can be lost. If that window update is dropped in transit, the sender never learns that space has opened. It continues to wait. The receiver, having sent the update, assumes the sender received it and is preparing to send. Both sides are now waiting for the other to move. The sender is waiting for a window update that was already sent but never arrived. The receiver is waiting for data that will never come because the sender believes the window is still 0. Neither side has broken any rule. Neither side has done anything wrong, but the connection is deadlocked, and without intervention, it will stay that way indefinitely. TCP's answer to this is the window probe. After receiving a 0 window, the sender does not go silent and wait without limit. It sets a timer. When that timer expires, it sends a probe, a very small segment, often carrying a single byte, designed not to deliver useful data, but to force the receiver to respond. The receiver, upon receiving the probe, sends an ACK. That ACK carries the current window value, whatever the state of the receiver's buffer is right now. If the application has drained some space, the window will be non-zero. The sender reads it and resumes sending. If the buffer is still full, the window will still be 0. The sender resets the timer and waits for the next probe interval. The probe is the sender breaking the silence. Not because it has something meaningful to contribute, the single byte it carries is almost incidental, but because it forces a reply, and the reply tells it the current state of the other end. Even if the original window update was lost 30 seconds ago and the receiver has been ready to accept data ever since, the probe will eventually surface that information. The deadlock cannot persist once the probe fires. The probe does not fire immediately after the 0 window arrives. The sender waits a short interval first, giving the receiver a chance to drain space and send a normal window update before the probe is needed at all. If no update arrives in that window, the first probe goes out. If the probe returns another 0, the sender waits longer before the next one, then longer again. The intervals grow with each consecutive 0 response. This is intentional. A receiver whose application is under genuine pressure does not benefit from being probed constantly. The growing interval gives the application time to work without the sender adding to the traffic it has to process. The probing continues, less and less frequently, for as long as the 0 window persists. If probes continue to return 0 over a long period, if the receiver's application has hung, crashed, or stopped processing entirely, the connection will eventually be torn down. The exact threshold varies by implementation, but TCP does not probe forever. A receiver that cannot recover within a reasonable time will eventually be declared unreachable and the connection abandoned. In the common case, though, this does not happen. A momentary stall, a burst of data that briefly exhausted the buffer, a short pause in the application, resolves within one or a few probe cycles. The sender receives a non-zero window, and the connection resumes as if nothing had interrupted it. One thing worth being precise about: the stall is a condition the sender experiences based on information the receiver provided. The receiver does not announce that it is stalling the connection. It sends an acknowledgement with a window field containing 0, which is exactly what it always does. The inference, stop sending, wait, probe, is made by the sender when it reads that value. The receiver then goes about its work, waiting for the application to drain space so it can advertise a larger window. It does not coordinate with the sender about how to handle the pause. Each side manages its own state based on the information in the packets exchanged between them. What the stall makes concrete is something that the window mechanism can obscure. The sender and receiver are not in continuous contact. They communicate through packets, and packets can disappear. When the flow stops completely, silence between them is no longer a sign that things are working. It may be a sign that a signal was lost. The window probe is TCP's recognition of that risk. A deliberate interruption of the silence, timed and repeated, designed to recover information the normal flow of traffic failed to deliver. The stall is not a broken connection. It is a connection that reached its limit, stopped correctly, and then refused to simply wait without end. The probe is that refusal, a small, periodic signal sent into the quiet, asking whether the wait is still necessary.